everyone. Good afternoon. I'm excited to be here today. Today, we're going to be talking all about custom apps, custom workflows, and customizing your business in Slack. My name's Karishma, and I head up our New York-based solutions engineering team. And every week, my team sits down with customers, and we look at their business, and we think, how can we help improve their business? What's working well, and what's not? Using that information, we design custom solutions with our customers to figure out how to better improve their business flows and their business processes to ultimately make things work better together. And one thing that's common when we sit down with these customers and we talk to them is sort of this common theme of, hey, we have a lot of great collaboration tools. And my sales team, well, they work really well inside of Salesforce. But the minute we start needing to working with marketing or other teams outside of that, that's really where things start to break down. Now, I think if we look at sort of state of the union on collaboration as a whole, I think we can all agree collaboration in this day and age is fundamental for companies to work together towards a common goal. And the challenge really exists that so much collaboration is happening in these silos of the different tools that exist in your tech stack. What Slack is really uniquely positioned to be is sort of that one platform that really connects, and it acts as the hub to bring together all of your tools. So that now in Slack, you can use Box and Atlassian and Okta and all of these tools better together with Slack. So much of this is made possible through our platform. And I know that many of you in the room today may have used or connected various Slack applications already. Our app directory today has over 1,000 apps that you can, out of the box, connect and easily and simply bring your content management system, like a Dropbox or a Box, or your project management tools like Trello, into Slack. But what if you want more? That's where custom apps come in. And using our open API today, you can easily configure and build custom apps that are designed to specifically meet the needs of your business. So we're going to introduce the concept a little bit of what custom apps are, and then I'm lucky enough to have not one, but two special guests on stage with me. Creel from Cotiviti Labs is going to talk us through CoachBot, a custom app that he actually built that's transformed his business. And we'll end with a fireside chat with Mike Brevoort. Now, Mike is the CEO and founder of Missions, a technology that Slack acquired in July of this year. Just to set the stage a little bit, though, custom apps. What you do with a custom app is you really bring the best of what's happening in another system, whether it's your sales CRM or your marketing analytics tools, into Slack. And using app actions and message buttons, you're actually able to customize this two-way functionality of what actions do you want to take directly from Slack and send out to your CRM or send out to your marketing analytics solution. So you can kind of see how you can completely build and tailor the different stages in qualification opportunities and send that out. The best part is when you choose to build custom, everything you do is uniquely tailored to the way that your team works. So ultimately, what that means is your team's able to operate more efficiently using these integrated tools in Slack. Now, what we've heard from customers who've chosen to go custom, like Chris over at Cotiviti, is that custom apps help increase team cohesion. Because everybody's working in Slack, they have all of the context that they need to make decisions faster. So it helps your teams save time. You can get a project done in X less days when you're using Slack and custom apps. And lastly, what we find is that, as we talked about earlier today, right, people spend 10+ hours a day inside of Slack. So when you start to build processes inside of Slack, it actually allows you to help maximize your ROI or investment on both Slack and these other applications and solutions. Now, I could probably spend the next 30 minutes just talking to you all about why I think custom apps are so great. But instead, what I'm going to do is invite Creel, our VP of Labs at Cotiviti, on stage. Now, Cotiviti is a leading healthcare information company. They've got about 5,000 employees today. And at the request of his executives, Chris has been leading initiatives across the company to help the company 10x their productivity and efficiency as they continue to grow. With that, please welcome Chris. Thank you so much for joining us on stage today, Chris. Now, I know you've been at Cotiviti for quite some time. You've surely seen a lot of change over the years. And it was about 3 years ago that you actually adopted Slack internally. Talk to us a little bit about why you decided to build CoachBot.
Well, so it came from this 10x challenge from our executives. Now, a 10x productivity and challenge for any company is crazy. It's a moonshot. But my partner on the executive team, he really just wanted to force our thinking. And so we knew it wasn't going to be a new technology or a new technology stack or new people. We knew that we really had to think about this holistically. And so we thought, well, what if we could run a large organization as though it were a startup? Get rid of all the management hierarchy and the org charts, and see if we could get that kind of agility at scale. And when we began doing research in that, we found one of the critical ways of doing it is constant 360-degree feedback. With that feedback, we found that individuals could modulate each other's behavior a lot more effectively and really achieve that kind of agility and stay adaptive, for those of you who saw the great Tomo discussion the other day. We were using surveys in the beginning to collect this feedback, and it was rough. They're heavyweight, they're outside of your normal working environment, and what we found was that people began dreading it, the engagement in the process went down, and the quality of the feedback was pretty terrible.
And when you're trying to maintain an agile organization, I'm sure getting that constant feedback is critical to the success of maintaining a flat organization.
That's
so
right.
Talk to us a little bit about, when you decided to move off of this other survey tool that you were using and build something custom. Why did you decide to build on Slack?
So a developer recommended it. They were frustrated with the survey, and he came to me and said, you should just try and build a Slack bot for this thing. And at first I thought, well, how would I even go about doing that? But then I began researching it. And the more I researched it and the more I played around with the idea, the more I realized that I could actually make this a really efficient process. And I discovered that because of the Slack integration and the API, I could probably collect more information, and it would enable me to visualize the health of the entire organization.
That's a really interesting point. I'd love to get back to the concept of visualizing that. But do you actually mind sort of walking us through a little bit of what this app would look like in action?
Yeah, I'd love to. So let's say I have a colleague. We'll call him Michael. And let's say Michael, he has been late on some of his tasks. He gets easily distracted. And I need to provide him some feedback in order to help him up his game. And so you can see here, if you go to the next slide, I'm gonna just use Slack to provide him with this feedback directly. And I'm going to tell him here, focus on completing a task before taking up another. Now, this feedback's a little poor. I'm not sure how effective it's going to be. But the thing that you should take away from this particular picture is how easy this is. Honestly, it's just a few more characters than if I were to Slack Michael directly. We're only talking about this /coach@Michael, and then the feedback I would provide him anyway. OK, so I completely agree. You just type one sentence into Slack where you're already working. What happens when you press enter? So honestly, this is like the coolest thing, because this is where a custom application beats a survey hands down. It's interactive. Sure. You can have a conversation with a Slack chat bot. And so you'll notice here that that bot is providing me with counsel on how to provide better feedback to my colleague, asking me to make it more personal, make it subjective, make it actionable, make it positive. And the reason I came to these suggestions is because we've been collecting feedback for 5 years now, the years that we were using the survey, and then, of course, the years now that we were using the Slack chatbot. And so we were able to look at what features in that feedback drove the best performance. And so it's not just a guess. We were able to use that feedback and really do some analysis to get us to where we needed to be.
So just to clarify there, I think that's called feedback inception, where you're giving feedback on the feedback someone's submitting.
Yeah, I like that.
So I think we can all agree this feedback looks a little bit more better. We've incorporated some of the suggestions per sort of the natural language tooling. Now what happens when you hit submit?
Well, something to take away here is that with a survey, it's a once and done. It's a fire and forget, and you're over. It's over. But with the coach bot, I'm able to go back and update my feedback based on the counsel that I got from the bot. That's a big deal. I was talking to one of my colleagues earlier today, and he said, it's actually kind of a process for me. I enter my feedback, and I'm mad. And then I think about it, and I'm like, maybe I should go back and fix that. And so it's actually a process that people go through in order to get really good quality feedback. So here you can see that the bot thinks this is pretty good. And at the end of the quarter, the bot can then take all that feedback, package it up, and create a report that we can distribute to all of our everybody who received feedback and give them counsel on how to improve. We've then created a coaching team that can take this feedback and uses that feedback to come up with very specific improvement targets for every single person in the organization to try and help them up their game.
Okay. And since, as you mentioned, there's sort of better engagement using Slack, people are getting both constant feedback and then able to review that on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, so what's kind of cool is with the bot can now interact with each individual throughout the quarter because the bot has the feedback, and so it can kind of dole it out through the quarter, remind each individual of the things that their colleagues had told them to improve. And so it's actually an engagement process throughout the entire quarter.
I think that's a telltale sign that one day we'll all be working for robots and they'll control our lives.
We already are. It's already happening.
So one thing you mentioned a little bit earlier that I wanted to get back to is building this process into Slack, building custom, allowed you to do something interesting, and that was to visualize the data. So can you talk to us a little bit more about how you were able to do that?
Yeah, so this is like the coolest thing ever. What you're seeing here is a visualization of all that feedback that I was able to collect through the bot. And so just to give you a quick legend on what you're looking at, the black circles are the strongest performers. They got really good, strong, positive feedback from their colleagues. These would be people that we would be thinking about, okay, what can we do to help them expand their influence in the organization, help them really take all the goodness that their colleagues are talking about and figure out a way to spread that further. The circles that are white, those are the folks with the greatest amount of improvement. That areas of improvement. Maybe they're just in the wrong part of the network. Maybe we can think about repositioning them in the network so that they can perform in a different place, really taking advantage of their skills. And the red circles are just folks that provided feedback but didn't get it back in return.
Okay. And then how about the lines? What do they tell you?
Well, so the lines actually represent the health of the relationship. So we collect EQ, emotional quotient, for those of you who are familiar with this concept. We collect this data the CoachBot collects this data through that feedback process. And so I'm able to visualize the relationships. The cool thing about this is that now we're not just focused on the individuals, we're focused on the group as a whole. We can think holistically about the team. So this might be one of the very first times that our executives have seen what the team actually looks like, how work gets done, and it's completely independent of the org chart.
Okay, and so I mean, it kind of looks like a lot of blobs, but I'm noticing some patterns here. So over on the right, it seems like there's not a lot of interaction going on. What does that tell you?
So this is really curious because you're right, this group is new to the model. They're new to this hierarchy-free model. They're also new to Slack. They haven't been using Slack for very long. What I find particularly interesting about this is that all of these people work out of the same geographic location.
Wow. So they're in the same office, but they're using Slack. And they're just starting to use Slack today. Now, how about this group over on the right? Yeah. Over on the right, everybody seems pretty close and well connected. What does that tell you?
Yeah, so that particular group is, they started using Slack in January of 2015, which is when we switched over to it. So they've been using Slack the longest. They've also been in this model the longest. So these folks have been working without management oversight, without an org chart, without hierarchy, since January of 2015. And the other thing to note here is that they're scattered across the globe. These folks are scattered across India, they're scattered across Russia, and they're scattered across the United States. And yet, you can see here, very tight-knit group, great relationships, strong scores, and they move as though like they're a small adaptive startup.
Wow, that's really interesting. So it seems like Slack is what's helping bring together even a globally dispersed team in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Chris, if you could just sort of summarize for us, what has the overall impact been with using CoachBot and Slack at Cotiviti?
Well, so our company has done 3 independent studies of this work indirectly. So we've done engagement surveys. Most companies do these to try and figure out what engagement scores are looking like. And for groups that are using this model, that are using Slack, we see engagement scores that are 20 to 50 points higher than places that aren't using it. That is a huge deal. The other thing that we've noticed is that employees are now hyper engaged in this. I wish I could show you my feedback that I get from my colleagues. It's pages of the best feedback you can imagine. I was just showing somebody this the other day, and their comment to me was, that's amazing that people put this kind of energy. And my point to them was, this is the kind of stuff that they want to say to me anyway. This just gives them a very light way of getting that information to me. And the last thing is, the impact overall for the organization is, it's a magnet. People are really excited now about rolling this out in a much bigger way.
It's impressive, 20 to 50 points. Now, for anyone in the audience here that might be thinking about building CoachBot or something custom on Slack, final parting words of advice that you might be able to share?
Yes. So when my colleague, the developer I mentioned earlier, came to me and suggested this, I had this initial tightness in my chest. Frankly, I'm not a hardcore developer like these guys are. But I noticed that they're all using Slack. They all love Slack. And so if I could give them a tool inside Slack, just by the nature of the fact that this is where they like to be, I could probably drive better engagement. And then it turned out that making that app, it wasn't all that hard.
Yeah.
The work that Slack has put into the API, into the libraries, it's really impressive. And it's actually quite straightforward to do this. And so I was able to pull this together in about 6 weeks. It was nights and weekends because I had a day job as well. But the return that I've gotten on that investment is immense.
Great. That's really great to hear. We're really committed on making it easier to develop on Slack. So I appreciate you sharing your story with us, Chris.
You bet. Thank you so much,
Thanks
Karishma.
so much. As you heard Chris say, it took about 6 weeks for him on a side job to build and develop CoachBot. And I think the results really speak for themselves, right? 20 to 50 points increase on engagement, the ability for his company to work in a more agile way, all through building a simple bot on Slack. Now, I know that some of you in the audience may be developers or have some technical chops, but probably a lot of you are not. We at Slack understand that, and we are very much focused on ways to make it easier to build custom on Slack. Now, today, of course, you can use tools like Workato and ServiceNow that all provide codeless interface to build custom triggers and custom workflows. In July of this year, as I mentioned a little earlier, we acquired Missions Technology. And Missions is really focused to make it easier for you to build custom without code. To talk more about Missions and the vision for Slack integrated with Missions, I'd like to welcome to the stage Mike Brevoort, founder of Missions and now product lead at Slack.
Hey.
Mike.
Hey.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Welcome.
Nice to be here. I love
Absolutely.
New York. This morning, this is like the only city where you could meet Elmo and Spider-Man and Batman, and then another Batman, then another Batman, and then Wonder Woman, all in the span of 5 minutes on the street.
Were you hanging out in Times Square?
I was walking through Times Square. So,
okay.
But I realized, so apparently Comic-Con is this weekend, and so you might get to meet all those characters
There you go.
times, yeah.
Evening activity
Love
for
this
everyone
town.
after Frontiers. Yeah. It's great to hear. It's great to have you on stage with us. I think folks in the audience maybe have varying degrees of familiarity around what Missions is, and I think your words probably do better than mine. So could you maybe just kind of share with us a little bit about what is Missions?
Sure. So Missions is a simple builder that allows you to build Slack workflows without code. And so today, the way that you would do that is you need to build an app. And you need to be a developer today to build an app, or take advantage of an app that already does those things. But so the platform includes all these features like menus and buttons and dialog forms. But the irony is that you have to be a developer to take advantage of them in any way that's sort of custom to your team. And so we saw a huge opportunity to drastically expand the number of people who could take advantage of all these platform features that exist today to allow them to really custom tailor how they do work inside of Slack.
Sure. Where did that idea for building custom without code come from, or the idea for missions?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So before we joined Slack, my team was part of Robots and Pencils. And during that time, we worked with a lot of Slack customers. We built Slack integrations. We thought a lot about building on top of messaging platforms. And there were a couple things that we learned. One, we thought that there was a tremendous opportunity and potential to build on top of Slack as a sort of new generation, like next generation custom development layer or platform, because everybody's connected to it all the time. Everybody has it on their desktop or on their mobile device, so you have distribution. There's a pretty rich platform of like primitive components of these things, of like buttons and messages and dialog forms. And then from an authorization perspective, you have like group memberships. And so if you don't want someone to have access to it, don't invite them into the private channel where your app is. And so there's this whole layer that existed to be able to build these like custom experiences.
Sure.
But you still needed to be a developer to do it. And so as we built this, we kept building really similar things for clients. But the other thing that we came to realize is that we kept building similar things, but they were all very different. And so, like we said in the title of this talk, that every team is different, every workspace is different. People may use the same tools together, but in combination, they're all very unique and different. And so we saw a really big opportunity to, one, build a new workflow system to be able to allow people, anybody, not just developers, to build experiences on top of Slack. So.
Could you maybe share with us a few examples of what teams can do with it?
Sure. I mean, in essence, like Missions helps people to bring more of their work into Slack. And we think this saves time. And so by allowing you to automate some of the mundane things, it allows people to do more strategic and creative work, which is great. Because what we learned yesterday in Lindsay McGuire's talk is that when people get to be more creative and they get these tools that they didn't have before, like we found that we give these tools to people that aren't developers, that didn't have the ability to do some of these simple things, there's this element of play that's included in that.
Yeah.
And it's, we say, make you more productive and save you time so that you could go back to the mines and, come back with 3 more ounces of gold. But in essence, it makes people, happier at work. And there are things that people have done in Slack and Missions. We know it's not all work. It's kind of fun and games, too. And Missions is definitely an element of that. And so, yeah.
Absolutely.
So in addition, right? So we've seen. I guess your original question was, what can people do with it? So you could basically implement and automate critical business processes. We've seen people do things like automate the weekly status that you would collect from your team, or create a lightweight internal ticketing system to be able to triage employee requests for HR help questions, or help booking business travel, or even when you're in that far away, conference room in that corner of the building that's frigid and freezing and you're miserable, that there's a place and an outlet for you to ask someone to turn the temperature up.
Absolutely. I seem to always find myself in the most frigid of rooms in conference rooms. So I think that's great to hear, and really excited about the technology. Can you share with the audience, when would this be available for Slack customers?
So we're going through an exercise now. We're really trying to reimagine Missions inside of Slack and really as a core part of the platform. And we feel like we have this opportunity to do that. And so our team is, as we're doing that, we've taken the existing legacy Missions service, and anybody that was currently using it continue to use that. We're not onboarding anybody else into it right now. But our team is very focused on trying to get it right and we really think Missions is going to be a really critical piece of the platform that's going to enable sort of a new category of builder on the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure many of the customers in this room are probably thinking about different workflows they'd like to automate using Missions technology. So good luck to you and your team on sort of building that out and getting that fully integrated in Slack. But while I have you on stage, would you be obliged to show us a demo of what it looks like?
Sure. So I can at least, like I said, we're working on it. We want to get this into your hands and our hands even as quickly as possible. There's been a lot of demand for it. So hopefully, we're shooting for early next year that we'll have something out to you. But in the meantime, I can show you, give you a demo of some of the capabilities that are possible in the existing product, which hopefully will sort of stimulate your imagination for some of the things that are possible. And so keep in mind, what I'll show is going to look different than what will be released sometime early next year, early first half, somewhere around that time frame. And so I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to do a quick demo and show you how a legal team might improve collaboration inside their team. And so imagine that you're part of the legal team. I guess close your eyes and imagine.
Right.
So imagine you're part of the legal team at Acme Corp. Sounds like a good company to me. And every day you open up your email, and it's just full of requests from people with requests to review and approve contracts, customer agreements, hiring offers, business development contracts, and you get the idea. And it's not just these requests, it's like follow-up for updates on those requests. And it's replies to those requests, and you really don't know if you got the whole picture, if somebody replied to all, or who's responsible. And it's really difficult to track. And you have this inbox where everybody's kind of on their own island, and you're not really sure if you've got the whole picture. And it's hard to, difficult to understand priority levels and deadlines. And it's a difficult situation that we've all been in. This is the life of legal. And so we think that we could do considerably better by beginning to move some of this into Slack. And so at Acme Corp here, we have this legal review channel. And what we're going to do is I'll show you a quick demo of how you could use this as an intake mechanism so that when someone comes into Slack, into the legal review channel, they could just drop a file in, fill out a form to gather additional details, and the request is then captured with all the information that you need, versus if someone sends you an email, or even if they just come in this channel with this request, you don't really know, what questions, they don't know what information they need to provide. So it's key that when they create the request that you can provide that information. So this is what the legacy emissions authoring environment looked like. Here we have a workflow. And the first thing I'm going to do is just customize where these messages come from. So I'm just going to give this a little context, because we found out context is really important. And so we're going to name this. So all the messages will come from this, the bot name of legal requests. And we'll go ahead and add a profile picture here. This nice little legal icon. I'll save that. OK. And so this will be triggered. So the way this will get kicked off is when somebody shares a file in the legal review channel. Simple as that. And so each time someone shares a file there, we're going to send a message right below it immediately that says, hey, got it, file share. And this will be like a mention of the actual user. We just need a few details to complete your request. We'll do that through this button, and that button will launch this legal request form. And so this is just a dialog form that you've probably seen in other apps, but this one you can customize and tailor to your heart's content. And so here I'll add, we have request type, so we'll have NDA review or sale contract. I'll add the partner agreement here. And then we have priority, low, medium, high. We have some notes, just a free-form text where you can add additional context for the legal team to understand what's important about or what to look out for as far as this request. I'll go ahead and click Done there. So we have our form. And so after we collect that information from the form, all we're going to do is replace that message with another message that takes it and formats it in a nice, consistent way that the legal team can understand it. And so we have here the type, who it was submitted by, and the notes. We also have a nice title, and we're going to link to the file that was uploaded itself. And so here you can see, as I've done that, I could reference any of the data that was collected throughout this process about the file and about the data that was entered. And so I'll go ahead and just save that, and I'll publish it, and it should connect right away up to Slack. So I'll pop over to Slack into our legal review channel. And I'm just going to drop this sample NDA over into this channel and upload it. And so after that uploads, we should see a message from our workflow that says, hey, got it. I'm actually logged in as Ben Myers. Ben Myers is a real person, so this is his 5 minutes of tiny fame. Just need a few details to complete the request. I'll click the button. We should see our form here. This is an NDA review. You can see that partner agreement that we added. I'll say it's of high, and this is the big deal. You know, hurry, but please. Lights. It's important. And then so here you see our message nicely formatted for the legal team. And so, oh, thanks.
All right, yeah.
So we can switch back to the slides. Yeah, and so that was actually a really trivial example. You may say, great, you showed a form that just put the information that I enter into the form, and I could have just wrote that in the message. The most valuable piece of that is we gave them a form, and we asked for very specific information that we needed to be able to service the request. But you could see how you could easily take this forward and, for example, add a button maybe to that message where someone on that team could claim the request. So you have a team of people on legal, each with different responsibilities, different expertise, and depending on the request that comes in, someone could claim that, and it would be theirs to manage. Or you could see how you might add a menu where you could reassign this to somebody. So that's whether or not, if let's say you have a manager that's like routing these requests to their people, or you want to make it easy to reassign. So I claim one of these things on Friday, but it's Friday afternoon, I'm going to be on vacation next week, and I want to hand off responsibility. And so the point here is that it's really easy to add these elements and take advantage of this. And it's up to you. I mean, the power of this is really that everybody's different. Every workspace is different. Every team is different, and the way you work is different. And so we want to provide you with the tools to be able to work the way you want to work. And we want to allow you to do that inside of Slack. And so that's what Missions is really all about.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Round of applause.
Thanks.
Thank you. We're just wrapping up time here, but we are so excited to see Missions technology continue to get integrated into Slack. We've covered a lot today. We've talked a little bit about custom apps and how valuable those are to really help tailor workflow and tailor processes in Slack to connect both all of your existing tools into our platform. We've given you a sneak peek at Missions technology and how Slack is continuing to make it easier and easier to build and integrate custom workflows directly inside of our application. And we got to be joined on stage, not but least, with Creel at Cotiviti Labs to actually give us a real example of why and how custom apps are so powerful. I'm going to stick around after if anybody has questions. If you'd like to stay up to date on Missions and when that will get integrated into Slack, please feel free to sign up at missions.ai, and you will be the first to hear about the next evolution of Missions technology. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.